We want to talk to you today about Weekly Lottery and how Weekly Lottery can support you with your funding for community projects. First, a little bit about Woods Vale Data, who we are. At Woods Vale Data, we're passionate about people, partnerships, and what can be achieved when we do great things together. We are about working with you as an organisation to help you achieve your objectives. We offer not-for-profits a full spectrum of outsourced fundraising services. We have our own people, processes, technical capabilities, and breadth of experience in-house, so you know that everything that you get is the best it can be. So we do all sorts of fundraising, and we work predominantly with charities, both local and national charities. With this product, with Affinity Lottery, we'd also really like to work with town councils, which is why we're talking to you today. I can't move the slide forward. There we go. Just a little bit about the kinds of things we do. We don't just do Weekly Lottery, which is the purpose of the conversation today. We also work on raffles, response handling, fulfillment, direct debit management, data strategy. So just to give you a little bit of an idea that we've been around for a while, and we do work with quite a lot of organisations. I wanted to start off with just talking about what a weekly lottery is. It is a great opportunity to raise funds for your community projects, but what is it essentially? It fits into what we call prize-led fundraising. So prize-led fundraising, you might also know that as gaming, is quite simply a way where somebody can support you as an organisation, but they also get something back in return. So we call it reciprocal, we call it give and get, but it's a way that people can give, but they're in with a chance to win something. Prize-led fundraising is a raffle, a weekly lottery, a free prize draw. It could be a scratch card, it can be an event-based draw, it can be a tombola, it can be all those sorts of things. And today we're talking about weekly lotteries specifically. I'm going to pass you over to Gem to talk through some of the weekly lotteries that we offer, and specifically today we'll be talking about the Affinity Lottery option.
Thanks, Helen. So at Woods Vale Data, we offer 3 different lotteries, which is very much depending on your aspirations as a charity or society or town council. So we are here today to talk about Affinity Lottery, which is our pooled lottery. And by a pooled lottery, what we mean is that all of the charities and societies on the Affinity platform are entered into one draw every Friday. The winner can come from any one of those charities on board. Affinity offers a really great prize fund, and it's a great way to test the water with a weekly lottery. Our next product would be the Aspire Lottery. This is a lottery branded to you. It's your own lottery. But again, in the same way as Affinity, it offers a really attractive prize fund without the pressure of you having to fund it. You would fund the guaranteed prizes, which we'll touch on a little further on in the presentation. And then we have our Advantage Lottery, which is our more bespoke model. And as such, it comes with more customizable supported journeys, online website, and everything you would want to grow a weekly lottery. But it does mean that you would need an existing supporter base to start with an Advantage Lottery. So today we're here to talk about Affinity Lottery. So as it says here, it's no risk, no worries, and no hassle. You can be up and running within a week, providing you have a lottery license. And the way the pricing model works, it means you only actually pay if people play. With Affinity, you can get started with just 1 player on board, and with low setup costs of £400. It really is a great way to test the water with weekly lottery. The top prize of £25,000 is covered by Woods Vale Data, along with a £1,000 second prize. And then we also pay out 35 guaranteed prizes every week to everybody within the Affinity platform. They have that chance of winning. So maximum rewards, minimum cost. It's perfect for testing a weekly lottery, and it's ready online, fully branded to you. You get your own website too.
Thanks, Gem. Okay, so why would you include a weekly lottery? Well, it will enable you to raise additional funds for community projects. And that's really when we've surveyed 186 UK charity fundraisers as to why they include prize-led in their fundraising mix. And that was the first thing that came out, with 72% of people saying it provides additional income. In terms of fundraising for charities, it attracts a different supporter profile as well, and it helps get more people on board, so more people that they can build a relationship with. And when we're thinking about fundraising, fundraisers will look at a hierarchy of giving, of which lottery is part of that, is part of this regular giving part of a hierarchy of giving. But thinking about town councils, we're thinking, you know, how does that work in terms of town councils? And I guess, although I'm no expert on this, and Martin might be able to help me out a little bit, it's about providing additional income to the precept that is provided to you. And that's what this is all about. And Martin, maybe you can give us a little bit more information on that and just talk about how you approached this for Kettering.
Yeah, thank you. Just for context, Kettering Town Council's not quite 3 years old. So one of the early decisions that the new council made was that they wanted to generate money from sources other than the council tax. So this process was slightly underway when I got underway when I started, but the members were aware of other lotteries that previous principal authorities had undertaken in the area. So they probably thought they were going to raise a reasonable chunk of money from this route to supplement whatever grant schemes we had ourselves. And we still have a grant scheme on top of this. So that was the motivation from our members' point of view, is another source of income, and one that hopefully could be grown over time. In terms of our setup operations, there was the tendering process because Woodsville Data aren't the only provider providing this sort of solution. We went with Woodsville Data because they took the smallest amount of fee of all those that were submitted tenders. So I think your fee was 35%. Kettering Town Council takes another 5% on top of that for its own costs, and I'll come back to those in a minute. So that meant that 60% of the money was immediately available to recycle into good causes. So the other elements of the setup were to go and get a license from the licensing authority. That took rather longer than it should have done, but that was relatively straightforward. I also wrote a policy, or a constitution really, which determined how the lottery was to be run, for what purposes it was being set up, some of the governance issues around it, and obviously I had to set up a separate bank account for it as well, so that we kept it separate from the council's own activities. Obviously, it's got its own separate presence on our Scribe accounting system. So that was essentially all we had to do: get a license, write a policy. Affinity does all the rest for you, really. They set up the website that people use to access the system. And in terms of ongoing administration, apart from the comms and PR, which I'll come to in a tick, I do a 6-monthly return to the licensing authority saying what we've raised and spent, and there's the weekly invoices that need putting on Scribe, and the weekly income that needs putting there too. So, and then I report to our finance committee each month on the progress of the lottery. So it raises, in our case, about £6,000 a year into the net figure that's available for local causes. We've got a relatively small core of supporters, about 80 people at the moment, with about 120 chances between them, so that 120-ish gross income each week. We've had, since we started, which is 15 to 18 months ago now, 18 months now, we've had 160 supporters. So you can see that 50% of the people we've had are no longer with us. So the attrition rate fairly steady, but you get new people to replace the old people. So that attrition rate, provided you keep the communications going, isn't particularly difficult to manage. And I think that is the one thing you need to think about, is how you communicate this to your parish, your town, and the way in which you position it. We started off with a policy which said we'll fund 3 different sorts of good causes, which were housing and homelessness advice, environment, biodiversity, and well-being. Now they're all quite wide categories, and you can fit most things into one of those. And I'm actually going to go back to committee today, in fact, to ask them to review whether they want to focus on one thing rather than on a series of things. We've made 5, 6 awards since we started, generally about £1,000, but they've gone on relatively small projects, and I think that we get more traction from having one big project that we fund once a year. And so those of you who've got a big project in mind, that might be a better way to sell the lottery than having a range of projects which you have to explain to people. And just some of the projects we have funded, they're on the screen, but they include the food banks, theatre groups who do outreach to young people, around mental health, for example, improvements to allotments. We've had it's a hedgehog highway, actually, not a badger highway. It's a hedgehog highway and hedgehog habitats, and some outreach work from a local housing charity. So those are all very worthwhile things, but they're quite hard to sell, I think, in retrospect, about what the lottery is for. And whilst you can communicate with all your supporters relatively easily, because Affinity give you all their details, I'm thinking now that if we have a single project that we can focus on, that would be more impactful. What I would say is that it's pretty light work as far as the town and parish council is concerned. It's simply once you've signed up and done that setup, there's not much work in keeping it going, and most of our expenditure from the 5% that we retain has been on comms, a bit on bank charges, but mostly on comms. And that's the thing that you just have to be thoughtful about how you're going to get at people you want to get at. Kettering is quite a large town in terms of its population, but because we're a new parish council, we're not widely recognised yet as such. So we've still got some wider communication issues to get across, as well as this particular strand of our activity.
Great to hear from Martin that he has mentioned it's light on resource, because that was one of the key factors when we developed Affinity Lottery. We know that you don't often have a lot of time, and there is a misconception that running a lottery is it's very time consuming. You know, there's a lot of paperwork, but we do the heavy lifting. So as Martin said, it keeps it light touch your end. And in terms of setup, once your site is up and running, it does tick along quite nicely, and you can see those funds coming in via a dashboard which you can access for your real-time reporting. But in terms of lottery license, so you can get set up initially with a local authority small society lottery license. Sorry, that's quite a mouthful. And this will cover you for up to £250,000 income per calendar year, or £20,000 per lottery. So that will certainly cover you for the beginning of your lottery. Obviously, it depends how quick it grows, but you would then do your local authority lottery returns, and that would be one of the few things that you have to do as a council. We tend to do most of the legwork with everything else.
Thanks, Gemma. I think the other thing that Martin mentioned was around the attrition. So the number of people who've signed up to weekly lottery versus who then cancel their direct debit into it. And I've got a little bit of a chart that might help just explain that a little bit more in terms of what that looks like across the board for Affinity. This isn't Kettering Town Council, this is all charities that are part of, or not-for-profits that are part of Affinity Lottery. So if we look across from July last year through to July 22 to June last year, so over a year, this is the number of active players that are in Affinity Lottery. We mentioned the fact that it was a pooled lottery. That means that everybody that is part of Affinity, every not-for-profit that subscribes to Affinity, their players get put into one draw. And this just shows the progression in terms of the number of players that are in each of those draws each time. And then the red line there shows the number of cancellations. So of those players, this is the number of cancellations, and it is quite a steady number. We're looking at about 35% attrition over a 12-month period of players on average. So that's what you're looking at, people who are cancelling. But when you look at that against the number of people that are recruited, actually the chart shows that the cancellations don't match the number of recruited. So the people that are recruited, we continue to see an increasing number of players. In terms of people that play the lottery, really, who should you be targeting? Martin mentioned about the fact that, it is part of the responsibility of the council to get people playing. Who might you target? How might you do that? In terms of who you're targeting, generally a lottery player will look like this. So they'll look gen to be retired or very close to retirement, have a modest income, they'll own their own home generally. So if you are looking at particular segments within your community to target to play lottery, these are the types of people that you might want to target first and foremost, to give you an indication of that. And then the other thing that we probably talk about there is about how you might go about thinking about growing and retaining players into your lottery. So the first thing you might want to think about is what it is that you want to achieve for your council. Martin mentioned there that they started it with 3 different areas that they wanted to focus on: housing and homelessness, environmental projects, health and well-being. But he's recommended that potentially one bigger project might be more effective for this kind of program. But it's definitely worth thinking about that and thinking about the policy that you want to put behind that. Then what is your strategy for growth? How are you going to grow your lottery? How are you going to get players playing? With the Affinity model, for every chance that a player takes, you get money. So the way that it works is there's an initial setup fee, and then you get income for every chance that is played. So the more players you get, the more income you get for your good causes. You might want to put things into newsletters, magazines, local newspapers. Do you have an outdoor advertising space? I think Kettering put a banner up in the town centre. Do you have notice boards? Are there local events? Are there sporting events that are happening? Door drops or leafleting through doors, if there's particular areas that match that profile that we put up there, is it worth just going around and doing some leafleting? Obviously your website, social media, word of mouth. There's lots of opportunities that really don't cost a lot of money to promote out there, but can actually bring players in. And then finally, it's about that retention piece. So how are you going to keep the players playing? There is attrition that does happen, but there are things that you can do to reduce the amount of attrition that's happening. Through the Affinity dashboard, you'll be able to see at what point people drop off the programme, and you can put communications in place at that point to help keep them in the programme. So it might be, traditionally it's before the first payment is taken. We call those no-shows. What you can do there is you could send out an email or a letter to say thank you for playing and what impact their support will make to the local community. Another key drop-off point is about 3 months into the programme. And again, you could put another communication out there. So thinking about those points in the programme just to help inform and keep people, build relationships with them, keep people informed about what impact they're making through playing the lottery. And of course, tell them as well about people that have won in their local community. Say, 50 people in Kettering have won in the lottery so far this year. They're the kinds of things that you can do just to make it more tangible, make that idea of winning more tangible. So I guess there is a little bit of admin work there to do. You can do as much or as little as you want to, but the more you do, the more you'll keep those players playing. Okay. And I think just in terms of operations, Jen will just take you through some of the key things around what's involved in the setup.
So as we touched on before, you do need a gambling license, but not necessarily from the Gambling Commission. Your small society lottery license will come from your local authority where your registered office is. Usually it can take, it tends to take up to 2 weeks, but I know, Martin, we had quite a few delays in getting your license due to staffing. We were literally ready to go with everything. We were just waiting for that license because it does need to be displayed on the website, which we're going to go through next. But usually it's about 2 weeks. You do need to familiarise yourself with the Gambling Act, with lottery training, in order to keep you or your team up to speed with the rules of the lottery. It is termed gambling. But as such, at Woods Vale Data, we do actually do a Gambling Commission roadshow once a year so that you can keep up to speed with your training. It's extremely dry content. There's nothing terribly exciting about it, but we do our best, and that does count towards your training. So, you know, there's not a great deal more you can say about that, to be honest. Another thing you need to ask yourself, are you set up to process payments and run a weekly draw yourself? If not, outsource it, which is where we come in. We do all of the direct debit processing. We do all of the direct debit service letters. So all of the operational side of things, we pick that up and we do it for you, leaving you to promote your lottery. And as Helen mentioned, there are lots of different ways that you can promote it. We do find largely organic methods work really well with Affinity. So yes, things such as newsletters, emails, update emails, things like that, because you can actually customize the URL to be able to track where your signups are coming from. I know, Martin, you did an ad in the local paper, which did really well when you launched. So QR codes where the URL can sit behind that. Again, anything in the community, posters, all go really well.
Do you want to add to that,
yeah,
Gemma? I mean, it has been we have explored what works in terms of communications. And for example, we put an advert in the football club's program, which produced precisely nothing, interestingly, whereas a little banner campaign in the town centre got us a big uplift at the time. So maybe going back to Helen's profile of the typical supporter, maybe the football club wasn't the right place to go for potential subscribers, but I think you'll have to work out yourselves what would work in your area, and yeah, we got a bit of editorial at the start as well in the newspaper, so you know that gave it some initial welly, and then we've just kept doing a little campaign every now and again to keep it up and just, you know, widen its reach. So we use when we're at events, then we've got leaflets and material to hand out.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, the Affinity platform makes it really easy to track performance from your different avenues. So you can actually see what is and isn't working so that you can target the areas that do work for you. Everybody's different, but you know, as a rule, you can fit Affinity into most things. Great for piggybacking any other marketing you're doing too. So one thing I'm asked on lots of the demos I do is how long is it going to take to set up? So once you've got your lottery license, we can have you up and running within a week. This is in terms of Affinity. So for our other lottery product, it can take up to 6 months to launch a lottery. But with Affinity, with just one player, you're ready to go. So we can do that initial draw. Think about what you're going to need internally. As Martin said, it is light touch, but somebody will need to be doing those local authority returns and, you know, dreaming up ideas on how to generate your sign-ups, consider your player recruitment. And the finance reconciliation, you're paid your funds weekly. So you want somebody, you know, tallying up those payments. All of the reporting is downloadable from the portal for you. It's very much a self-serve window into your data and your real-time lottery reporting. So just some things to consider operationally, but in terms of the day-to-day running, there's nothing that you personally would need to do. This is the portal, if you like. It sounds very high tech, but it's a reporting tool. It's almost a CRM, if you like, of your lottery. So this is what you would see when you log in. So if you have any meetings and somebody says, right, how's the lottery doing? You log in and you've got your real-time reporting literally at your fingertips here. And then we can also go into individual supporter records. This is all demo data in here. So if we click on this test data, this will give you a window into the supporter record. If you get any supporters contacting you, you can go in, you can edit the record. You shouldn't get any calls because it's actually our telephone number on the website. So we handle all of your supporter calls. If they don't want to sign up online, they can sign up over the phone, again, handled by Woods Valdata. And we also have what we call our download section. And this shows all of the lottery reporting that you might need, including, you know, the attrition report, reconciliation for your finance team. It's all really clearly stipulated what is coming in and out of your account. And in terms of the actual financing side of it, it's paid by direct debit. So your fees are paid into your account after each draw on a Friday, and then the following Friday, those fees are then processed back into Woods Valdata's account by direct debit, which again, it keeps the resource to a minimum. You're not having to approve lots and lots of invoices. It does just flow in the background, which I think that tends to be what we find, Martin, isn't it? It does flow nicely.
Yes, absolutely. Apart from making sure our financial system is tracking that income and expenditure, yeah, everything else is automatic and you don't have to worry about it. And if you're away for a week, it doesn't matter because you can catch up a week later.
Lovely.
As I found.
And then in here, we also have a campaign progress report. So this is the report that will track where your signups have come from. And in the source code section, you can actually add any source code to the microsite. So for instance, if you have an event and you would like to put a QR code on a poster at that specific event or at any particular place in town, you can source code it with that place name. And then anybody coming through via that QR code with the URL sat behind it will then track straight through to your reporting. And then you can see what is and isn't working. And it's just a really crisp and clear way so that you can report back to the powers that be that your lottery is working. And this is where you need to focus all of your activity. So that is the portal. And Helen, am I okay to go through the actual site itself?
Yeah, absolutely, Gem. I think we're okay on time. John?
Yeah, we want to allow 15-20 minutes for yeah, but go, yeah, so wrap up in the next few minutes, I think. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
You can go into Q&A.
I shall do a quick whistle-stop tour. So this is what you would have as your microsite. Affinity comes with a site fully branded to your council. It would be your brand colours, your logo. This is our prize fund here, and it would be your lottery name. You'd supply us with an image, and this is all done at briefing stage with myself. And then we're down into the kind of nitty-gritty of the lottery. So this is where the supporter would choose their numbers. We do lucky dip, and we also do choose your own. People can be very superstitious when it comes to lucky numbers. So if you are of that variety, you can choose your own, or you can just hit lucky dip. And you can actually play up to 5 lines a week. We show 2 lines to encourage an extra play. If you just show 1 row of numbers, people are only going to play 1 row. By adding an extra row in there, it actually increases the average chances up to 1.4 on the Affinity platform. We then ask for a date of birth, and throughout the site, we've got these tooltips just explaining why we're asking for the data, just to instill that extra level of integrity and trust in the site. I've pre-populated here with details. So we ask for an email address here so the supporter can set up a manage my account function. which is then used for them to manage their lottery entries. They can go in much the same as online banking. And then further down, we ask for a password, again, so that they can set up their manage my account function. And then we're down to payment details. So it's direct debit only, and it's a variable direct debit, which is dependent on how many Fridays there are in the month. They can choose the 1st or the 15th. Most go with the 1st. This will then reflect which day their first draw takes place, and that's all stipulated in an email notification to them. I've put some dummy details in here, and behind here sits a check to make sure that that account can accept direct debits. And then we've got the direct debit guarantee, all bank approved, which again lends itself to its quick and easy setup. And then here we are down to just a summary of payment details before contact preferences. So just to touch on the data, this is all your data. These are your supporters. We wouldn't mail your data at all. And this can reflect your preferences that you currently have. So if we check a couple of boxes, and then we also have the terms and conditions, which are all written for you. Final confirmation of age and that you're a resident of the UK. And then that completes the sign up. And then we come up with a confirmation page, and then the supporter can go in to manage their account or back to your home page. If you want a more in-depth demo, you can book a demo. We'll pop a QR code up and we can go into it in a bit more detail and just touch on a few more kind of key points really. But that's it from me.
The dummy site, the demo site. This is one for Red Wings Horse Sanctuary. This is Kettering Town Council Mobile Ready. This is what their site looks like. So you can see that even though it's a templated site, it can look very different, very unique to your own council. I think we've covered most of that. What I will do is just leave these QR codes on the screen while we do the Q&A. So if you do want to book a demo with Gem, use the QR code on the left there. If you're interested in weekly lottery and want to find out a little bit more, we've got a couple of other webinars that we're running, and you can subscribe to those through the QR codes on the right hand side. That's it, John.
Excellent, thank you. We'll also share those in the email that we send out. Before we go in the QA, actually, I'm going to show a little bit of an update from Scribe, which is totally relevant to this because I'm looking for some helpers. So all the wins that you might get from the lottery, by the way, it's an awesome idea. I love it. Well done. I was thinking, oh, could I use that at Scribe? Pay for my holidays, but I think with governance I won't be able to get away with that. But yeah, a lot of the money that you get from the lottery will result in improvements to assets. Martin mentioned allotments. You might be trying to introduce some new play equipment or accessibility needs or outdoor gyms, skate parks, wildflower areas, all those kinds of things. And we're actually working on a new asset manager at the moment, and it's in beta release. So we'll be releasing it next week, looking for some help on testing, getting feedback. I'm going to tentatively called Scribe Pulse at the moment, asset management for sustainable communities, with an emphasis also on community engagement. Here's just like a screenshot of the actual dashboard where you have all your assets, the value, the insurance, the average lifespan, etc. And you can get a map and break it down into different categories. And this could be quite interesting because on your map, you could see which assets were funded by the data behind it, and you could see which were funded by a lottery, etc., because we'll make this map also publicly accessible. Then you got all the normal things related to asset management in terms of inspections and when they're coming up, and then breakdown on your finances there, along with your full list of all your assets. Are very easy to add the basic information in there and all the images related to them. And then you go dive into kind of the actual individual information on an asset. And there it tracks, there'll be a full audit trail from cradle to grave. So, and including any maintenance. So that could work nicely if you're doing a lottery fund. It's funded by lottery from cradle. You'll have the full audit trail from when it was created, and maybe even the voting and everything related to that. Yeah, so we're doing a beta test program. I'll just drop something in the chat in a minute. But yeah, it has the real-time dashboard, the actual asset management, and then the mapping, and then future plan features, project management related to it, all your inspections, etc., the compliance, the reporting and auditing to be alerted when you need to do inspections or there's issues. Also, residents will be able to flag an issue. Interaction with contractors or your finance, community involvement will be a feature in there. Tracking your carbon footprint. This is a screenshot of us tracking the power, the energy, water, gas, etc. Yeah, so lots of stuff planned.